Hi there BookTube, it's Eleanor here, and today I'm going to be doing my July TBR. So for July I'm trying something different yet again because I'm just not 100% sure that TBRs work for me, but I really love watching all of those TBR videos. You've got Cody's TBR wheel that she spins to help her pick her TBR. There's Becca's Bookopoly where she picks her TBR. There's another girl that I've been watching recently, and for the life of me I'm really sorry I can't remember her name, but I will link all these channels down below, who's doing like a bingo picking her TBR, which I've enjoyed watching, and I just really love watching those. I wish that I could have something that helped me pick my TBR that worked for me and that I stuck to, because I think what I'm finding is that there's some books that are just languishing on the shelf. So I've come up with an idea. This month is going to be our test run. If it doesn't work, then we'll just go back to no TBRs, but I thought it'd be fun to give it a go, and if it does work then it'll be a really fun way to help me pick my TBR each month. So my TBR is going to be based on snakes and ladders. So following on with this sort of classic game idea, you've got Cody's wheel, like I said, you've got Bookopoly based on Monopoly, you've got bingo. I've devised mine around snakes and ladders, which is a game I play a lot in my household, having a 6-year-old, and so I thought I would use what I had available and devise something to help me pick my TBR. So I'm just going to talk you through how it's going to work, and then we'll get playing and see what I end up with. Okay, so the concept of this is that I will play snakes and ladders once. So I will play the whole game to pick my TBR. Now we may end up picking a lot of books. I've looked up and the average number of throws to complete the game is 29, I think, or 23, maybe 23. But I think that might be for 2 people. So I'm thinking I might be able to do it in sort of 12, which is a decent amount to pick for my TBR each month. But I'm sure when we do this in a minute we will find out, and maybe I'll end up with 30 books and that'll be ridiculous, and then we'll have to tweak it, but we shall see. So the idea is to play right the way to the end, rolling the dice each time. Let me tell you what the different things mean. So as you can see, this board's got different colours of squares on it, and they are repeating. You've got yellow, white, red, blue and green. Now these are going to change each month depending on what I'm fancying or my mood is or what I'm trying to achieve that month. But for this month, if I land on yellow, I have to pick a non-fiction book. If I land on white, I have to pick a book with a 1-word title. If I pick red, I have to pick a book as part of a series. I've got so many series that I just need to finish. So actually it would be beneficial if I landed on this a few times and got a whole series out the way in the month. If I land on blue, it's a recent arrival, so something that's been in my haul for the last month. So in July it will be books that I hauled in June. So that will be what I pick if I land on blue. And if I land on green, it's going to be on the fence, a book that I've been a bit on the fence about whether I'm going to like. I just need to give it a go. Even if it means I end up DNFing it, it's got to get off that shelf. I need to give it a go. Right, if I land on a ladder and I go up that ladder, oh, I love a good ladder, then you get to pick a free book. So I get to pick any book I want off my shelf, and I might not pick that in this video. If I land on a ladder, I might allow myself to have that as a spare throughout the month to pick as and when I'm sort of in the mood for something else, which means that I've got a bit sort of a relaxed section to my TBR, because I think that's what I need, because if it's too strict, I know I'm not going to want to read. If I land on a snake though and I have to go down, then it is out of my control, and someone in my house is going to pick a book for me, probably Matilda. She will just randomly go to any book she likes the look of, and I will have to pick that book. If I land on the longest snake, which I think is this one here, then that means I have to read one of the books that is on my yearly TBR list. I've got about 12 books on there that I'd like to get through this year, and that would mean I have to pick up one of those, and I think most of them are either classics or quite long ones, so it'll just force me to pick those up. If I roll a 6, I get to roll again, and I do not have to pick a book on the space that I've landed on, so I get to skip that one and roll again. And when I get to the end every month, I'm going to read a comic or graphic novel. So really, in Snakes and Ladders, you are meant to land exactly on the end. You're meant to sort of bounce back until you land exactly. Now, if I did that, I think I would end up with an awful lot of books on my TBR. So what I'm going to say is that, say I am on this space and I roll a 3, that means I'm past the finish line, and it just means that I pick up my graphic novel or comic. If I'm on this space and I roll a 2 and I land exactly on it first time, then that is a free pick for me. That means, because the books that I pick on this TBR need to be read or got rid of by the end of the month. But if I land exactly on that space, that gives me 1 free pass. It means that if I don't get to a book and I just need a little bit more time with it, then I've got a free pass to roll that over to the next month. So I think that's the rules. Obviously each month, as I say, I'm going to change what each of these squares means, but we know what the squares mean for this time, so let's get rolling and see what my TBR is for July. Okay, so for a series, I have picked the second, and I think the last, I think it's a duology, in Donielle Clayton's The Bells, which was the first book, and this one is The Everlasting Rose. This is set in a world where beauty is everything, and there are these roses, these women, or girls really, that are brought up to be able to change people's appearances through sort of a magical plastic surgery type thing, and things have started to unravel for the roses. They've started to realise that maybe things aren't quite as they seem, and that, yeah, there's darker things at work. And so I really enjoyed the first one. I know it's a bit mixed, there's sort of mixed reviews and opinions on it, but I really loved the first one, so I'm looking forward to finishing this duology and yeah, finding out what happens. Okay, so a book that I'm on the fence about. I'm on the fence about this one. It's the start of a series. I picked it up ages ago. It's quite an old book now. I think it was from the 90s, and maybe it's dated, I don't know. But that is Secret Society Girl, an Ivy League novel by Diana Peterfond. And Lord knows when or why I picked this one up. I've probably heard about it from someone who enjoyed it on BookTube, and I've just never read it. I'm a bit on the fence about it. It's time to try it or get it off the TBR. It's about a university junior called Amy. She's been tapped for this sort of most powerful, notorious secret society, but she isn't your sort of usual candidate. She's not male, she's not connected or rich or political, and then she's sort of whisked into an initiation that's a blend of Harry Potter and Alfred Hitchcock. It says she awakens to a new reality and a whole new set of friends, from a gorgeous son of a governor to an Afrocentric lesbian activist whose society name is Thorndike, and then she starts to discover the truth, which perhaps is not all it seems. So it does sound good on the tin, you know, but I don't know, I'm a bit on the fence, so this is my pick for that one. Okay, so a new book to my shelf. I've picked Call It What You Want by Bridget Kemmerer. I quite enjoy Bridget Kemmerer's books, and this one was very kindly given to me by the publisher to read, and I want to read it. It's starting to sort of call to me, so this is the perfect time to pick it up. It's about a boy and a girl. The boy's father has been embezzling money from people in the town, and so he's become sort of a social pariah. The girl's perfect home life has been ruined by the fact that her sister has just got pregnant. I think she must be a young pregnant teenager maybe, and they are paired together, these two, in working in something towards something together at school, and I think things start to go wrong when the boy decides that he's going to sort of repair the damage that his father's done. So I'm interested to see whether this goes along the romance route or whether it's more of a friendship, or how everything is handled. So yeah, this will go on the TBR for this month. Okay, so non-fiction. I am going to be reading Unnatural Causes by Dr. Richard Shepherd, the life and many deaths of Britain's top forensic pathologist. I think this just sounds intriguing, a bit morbid, but I don't mind that. And this is Dr. Richard Shepherd has performed over 23,000 autopsies. It says he's a detective in his own right, and he must solve the mystery of sudden or unexplained deaths. How did this person die? It's talking about over his career how he's looked at serial killers, natural disasters, perfect murders and freak accidents, and how his evidence has put killers behind bars. So I'm really looking forward to reading this and finding out a little bit more about his job, and I just think it's fascinating. Okay, so a book that I'm on the fence about. This one I'm on the fence about because I read this author's first book, which was I Stop Somewhere, and it was average for me. It wasn't my favourite, but I was very kindly gifted this by the publisher and at an event I went to earlier in the year, and so I do want to give it a go. Sometimes certain authors' books just aren't for you, but then another book, it's the right story, right time, so I really would like to try and get to this. So this is a proof copy, but it's All We Could Have Been by T.E. Carter. This is about a girl who sort of changes school every school year, and that is because she is avoiding people finding out much about her actual life. Her brother's done something, we don't know what. It's not sort of said in the blurb, but her brother's done something that she is trying to escape from, and she doesn't want people to find out about herself, so she moves so people can't get close enough to her to find out anything about her. But at this last school she is making friends, there's a potential love interest, and she really wants to become more to these people than just someone that sort of dips into their life. So I think this is going to be a really interesting book. Okay, so a one-word title. This one I've had on my shelf for a while, and it's Vox by Christina Dulcher. This is the story of a time where women are second-class citizens, their banks have been frozen, everything has been stopped for women, and they're only allowed to speak 100 words a day. They're not allowed to go to work or school and be educated. I think this just sounds very sort of Margaret Atwood-esque, and it's about time I got to it. I've had it on my shelf for ages. Okay, so a series. I've got this on my shelf. It's a trilogy. It's very summery, I think, and sort of contemporary. This is the first in the trilogy. It's SuperAwkward by Beth Garrard. I picked these up at a publish event, and I just think they sound really fun. It says it's about Bella Fisher, and it says that she's failing at life. One, she got her tongue stuck to a box of Calippos in a supermarket. Who hasn't? Two, I accidentally called my geography teacher Mum twice. He wasn't impressed. He was, oh, that's funny. Three, I'm a geek, and not in a geek chic kind of way, but in a secretly caring about failing maths and science way. And four, I always fail maths and science. And it says, so it figures that when I meet the fittest boy in the world, I'm also doing solo star jumps while dressed as a cereal box. This just sounds really fun. I just think it's going to be a really fun story. So this is the first in the trilogy. Let's hope I roll some more, because I'd really like to read the trilogy this month. Okay, so another book I'm on the fence about. I've not read anything by this author. People who have love it and love this author, but I haven't read anything by her, and I think it's about time. I'm a bit on the fence because these books are quite, not scary necessarily, but quite they're sort of thrilling, and sometimes that scares me a bit too much because I'm a wuss. So I'm going to finally pick up my first Karen Slaughter, and I'm going to pick up Pretty Girls by Karen Slaughter. I think, now correct me if I'm wrong, that this is a standalone. If it's not, I have got another Karen Slaughter on my shelf, so maybe I could swap it out for that. But let me know if you know. If this is a standalone, that's great, because that's really what I'm looking for, to just dip in and try. So as I say, it's sort of a thrillery type book. It says 20 years ago, Claire Scott's eldest sister Julia went missing. It was a mystery that was never solved, and now another girl has disappeared with sort of things that are sort of reminiscent of the past, and Claire is convinced that it's linked to her sister, and so she starts to sort of delve into it. Scary stuff. About, because I'm wondering, I know this sounds ridiculous, but I'm wondering if it's a bit too literary for me. I do struggle sometimes with literary fiction, or fiction that's written differently when it's literary, but I just think this story is so potentially powerful that I want to read it and try it, so it's about time. And that is Women Talking by Miriam Towles. This is about a time in 2005 to 2009 where 100 girls in a remote Mennonite community were knocked out, as in sort of, you know, drugged and raped repeatedly, and this is their story. Yay! So number 2 in this series, I shall be picking up this one. Another book with a one-word title, and this time I've gone for one that's a bit more risque, and I've gone for Dare by Ali-Juliette Mousseau, I think. Look at that. Not necessarily my idea of handsome, but there we go. So this is Dare, Brothers of Ink and Steel. This is a UFC fighter meets a single mum who's escaped an abusive husband. Romantic story. I hope there's some steamy times. Okay, so another non-fiction. This one everyone raves about, so I think I'm going to read this month, and that's Educated by Tara Westover. Everyone talks about this. It's been on various TBRs of mine and in various videos of books that I'm interested in reading. Tara sort of escaped from her family, I think escaped or sort of left her family because they didn't believe in education. They're sort of end of days, I think. Yeah, preparing for end of days. I think, you know, various things like she didn't have a birth certificate. They were homeschooled or they weren't schooled. I think something happened in her home life. I think there might have been some sort of abuse going on, maybe with her brother, and don't quote me on that. I think that's just something I've heard on in a video. And this is about how she got herself educated and how she sort of pulled herself away from her family to do what she thought was right and follow her own dreams. So I'm looking forward to reading this. Well, not looking forward, but I've heard it's a good and interesting read, so yeah, I can't wait to read this, really. Yes, I can read the trilogy this month. Oh gosh, I hope I like these books, otherwise it's going to be a bit of a letdown. But this is the 3rd in the trilogy. Again, I'm not going to read the back because I don't want to spoil myself, but yes, this trilogy will be read this month or it will be leaving my shelves. Another non-fiction. Okay, so for that, it's one I picked up quite recently, The Unexpected Truth About Animals by Lucy Cook. This just sounds fascinating. It sort of ties in this idea that we've had from Disney and various myths over the years of things that we think we know about animals, but actually they're myths, and we've sort of come to believe them as real from all of this sort of media and different things bombarding us. And actually Lucy's looking to dispel some of those myths. So here she's talking about things like how once upon a time we thought eels were born from sand, hippos were fire-breathing horses that sweated blood, and that bears gave birth to formless lumps that were licked into shape by their mothers. And it says this book stars feminist hyenas, perverted penguins, frogs in taffeta trousers, and exploding bats. So I think this is going to be a fun read. If you've watched my non-fiction books I'd like to read, this was on there and I'm definitely still interested. It's Talking with Psychopaths and Savages, A Journey into the Evil Mind by Christopher Berry D. I just think this sounds really interesting. It's talking about this sort of criminologist has gone and spoken to lots of dangerous people, interviewed criminals and notorious serial killers, and he documents it in here, so I think it's going to be a dark but very insightful read. Book I'm on the fence about, and that is Alienated by Melissa Landers. This came out quite a long time ago, and that is what I'm worried about. I'm worried that it hasn't dated well. This came out at a time where those sort of books, those sort of alien books, you know, boy and girl from different planets fall in love, they were a real big thing, and I'm just not sure if they have sort of managed to stand the test of time. Maybe I've left it too late to read this one, we'll see. But this is about when aliens made contact 2 years ago, and Cara Sweeney is now having to share a bathroom with one of them. It's to do with going to college, and I'm sure there's going to be some sort of romance. We shall see. Next one I'm on the fence with, because if you know me, you know that I struggle with certain things in books, and one of them, don't ask me why, I love Irish people, but I really struggle with books set in Ireland. I'm not sure why. But this is Eggshells by Catriona, I think, or Katrina Lally, and or Catriona Lally. If you know, let me know down below. And it's about Vivian, who's a bit of an oddball. It says an unemployed orphan living in the house of her recently deceased great aunt in North Dublin. It says, you know, she's a bit different. She goes through life doing things her own way. She's eating blue food, cultivating her smell, wishing people happy Christmas in April, or putting up an ad for a friend called Penelope to check why it doesn't rhyme with antelope. It sounds very intriguing and different and quirky, and I'm hoping that I'll enjoy it, but I am a little bit on the you know, on the fence about this one. Another new book to my shelf, The Body Lies by Jo Baker. She wrote Longbourn, which is a book I really enjoyed, which is sort of set in the downstairs of the Pride and Prejudice story from the perspective of the servants, and I really loved that book so much. I thought it was really brilliant, and so I'm really intrigued to see where she goes with more of a thriller book. This is about a woman that's gone to teach at a sort of more remote university, and one of her writing students is writing a sort of thriller dark book, and the main protagonist bears a close resemblance to her. New to my shelf, and for that I'm picking up Scars Like Wings by Erin Stewart. One of you told me that this was a 5-star read for you, so I'm hoping it will be for me too. It comes out in October, so it would be really nice to read it ahead of schedule and be able to tell you my thoughts on it. This is about a 16-year-old girl who's going back to school after a house fire has left her severely disfigured, and it's how she deals with that, the people she meets, how maybe she's changing who she's friends with, I don't know, but I think it's an interesting idea, and I hope it's done respectfully, and I'm going to find out and let you know. Okay, Okay, this time for On the Fence, I've picked The Ghost Wall by Sarah Moss. This is a really short book, which I think I'm going to need for this TBR because it's quite long. And I'm on the fence about this because sometimes Sarah Moss, well, she's a bit miss for me, if I'm honest, but the premise of this just sounds so good. It's about this family, and they go to live in a hut in Northumberland as an exercise in experimental archaeology. So that sounds interesting. And then it's sort of taking part in Iron Age life. I think it's quite dark, and I just think it's going to be an interesting one. So I'm on the fence, but hopeful. And I've finished, so I get to pick my graphic novel, and this month I'm going to read Kid Gloves by Lucy Knisley. I love Lucy Knisley. I love her books. I love her drawing. I love her sort of humour in her books and how they are based on real life. I've got all of them. I think all of them have been, no, some of them have been 5 stars. Her more recent ones especially have been 5 stars for me. And yeah, I think I've heard from people that this one has, Lucy had a close experience to me during birth, which it can be quite triggering. I don't mind that so much. I find it quite cathartic if I get a good chance to cry about things like that, and just sort of release that a little bit. So yeah, I'm going to read this one as my graphic novel this month. So that is my TBR for this month. I am excited to see how this goes, and I will be wrapping up as the month goes on with reviews and letting you know how I'm getting on. Yeah, let me know by giving this a thumbs up if it's an idea you like, and fingers crossed that it works for me. We shall see. Roll on July. Bye for now, BookTube.